ago. It's called the Bedford Level Experiment. It's a canal in England that's 66 miles straight. A guy put a camera just inches above the water. He got a rowboat with a little flag, and he put the camera on the flag, rowed all the way down to the end, and he could see the flag the whole time when there should be 24 feet of curvature according to spherical geometry. 24 feet of curvature. There wasn't any curvature at all. And that's just 6 miles. Next. This is the picture in the background is from Time and Day, the website. And then the picture from the front is the blue marble. Where's Europe? Where's Australia? In this picture, it shows Australia is in the light at the same orientation that this picture is, but it's really on the other side of the planet. So the reason that it spreads out like that is because the southern hemisphere is not a ball. It's not rounded like the same as the upper northern hemisphere. It's the outer flat stretched out southern hemiplane. I'm going to stop using the word hemisphere because that leads you to a ball mentality. Next, the Statue of Liberty. Everyone's familiar with that. It's visible from 60 miles away. That's over 2,000 feet of curvature, but you can see it on a clear day. Next, this is a lighthouse. 180 feet tall. It should be 996 feet below the curve of the earth, but boats can see it from 42 miles out. Next, this is a series of islands that can be seen. I believe the one on the left is 125 miles away. That's almost 2 miles of curvature, but it can be seen out across the flat level ocean. Water does not bend, it's flat. Next, this is the Great Salt Flat. It's 90 miles wide, and it's perfectly level. It only varies by a couple of feet from end to end, and it should be over a mile of curvature from end to end, and it's flat. You know, if you have a strong enough telescope on a clear day, you can see somebody standing on the far end. Impossible on a ball Earth. Next. We're told that the sun is 93 million miles away. If you look at the top of the picture, and all of the rays come into the sun from edge to edge to the equator to the center at the same angle, and they're straight rays. And that is how, next slide, that Eratosthenes determined the size of the globe, where he said, okay, he took one stick. The sun, it has no shadow. He knew how far the other stick was. The rays are coming in parallel. He measured the shadow. He did some simple math, and he said, oh, the Earth is a ball. This proves it. Next slide. But unfortunately, you can get the same exact results if the sun is about 3,000 miles away, just about out of the frame there, and about 30 miles across. And on a flat Earth, you can get the exact same results with the shadow on one and no shadow on the other. Next. There's many times where you see these rays coming through the sun. I think they're called, I'm going to butcher the word, perspicular rays or whatever. You can laugh at me. These rays are splaying out because the sun is not that high. And if it was 93 million miles away, those rays would be straight. Go to the next one. Here's a clearer picture of those rays spreading out, and also a picture of a streetlight behind a tree, creating the same rays. We know that the streetlight is very close, and so is the sun. Next. Here's an experiment. I believe the YouTube name is P-Brain, but if it's somebody else, I apologize. He created a fake cloud, which is cardboard with holes in it, put a light right over it, and it created those same splayed out rays. Then he brought it outside, and with the sun being high enough for this model, the rays were straight because it was far away. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the sun is close and within our sky. Next. Here's a shot from the dog cam again. Does that sun look 93 million miles away? No, it's not. It's local. And every time we send a balloon up to these high altitudes, the sun is never over the balloon. It's always off to the side because the angle of the sun changes because the distance is greatly reduced, or the percentage of the distance. And if you look right below the sign there, there's a hot spot on the clouds from the sun. That could never happen if the sun was 93 million miles away. It can only happen when the light source is very close. Next, this is there it is again, just with the sun out of the picture. The hot spot, the sun is not high, not much higher above the clouds, whether it's 1,000 miles, a couple thousand miles, or a couple hundred miles. I don't know the answer to that. Next. Here is the sun on the top one. It's 93 million miles away, and then the Earth moves 3,000 miles, barely any difference, and it's that much bigger. You shouldn't see any difference in the size if the sun was 93 million miles away. This is 3,000 miles makes the sun much, much closer percentage-wise, and that's why you see a difference in the size of the sun. Next, here's from the time lapse in Africa. This is the first shot of the sun going away, and then we go to the next shot, and look how small it is. The sun's rays, the light is barely getting to us. The sun is getting smaller, and that is because it's going into the distance, and soon it's going to hit the vanishing point or the false horizon from the bumps on the land, and it's going to disappear and set. Next. This is a flight that recently went from Bali to LAX, and it was halfway to Hawaii. You can see Hawaii along the line there. When a woman went into labor and they had to make an emergency landing, the pilot could have turned around, which didn't make sense. He could have stopped in Hawaii, or he could have continued to LAX. Those are the best three options. But instead, next slide, he decided to go to Alaska. Now, why would he do that? It makes no sense at all. Next slide. And the reason is because on a flat Earth, it's a straight line. The plane on that line is in Alaska. Hawaii is way off to the right, and LAX is is farther ahead. So Alaska is the way to go. If you track packages around the world that are going to that side of the world, they all go through Alaska, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever on a ball Earth. Next, recently a pilot filmed a flight with a camera out the window that left LAX and went to Frankfurt, Germany. It went over, close to the pole, up the polar route, they call it, I guess. The sun was to the west. It was late afternoon. Go to the next slide. And the entire flight, you can see sunlight. If you look at the little map on the right, the sun is way off. It should be on the other side of the planet. It should be 5,000 miles or more over the horizon. But you can see the sun the entire time. It goes away, and then it comes back because it's traveling in a flat circle across a flat plane. Next. There's no shortcuts on a flat Earth. That's why when you fly from Australia to Chile, it goes up to the northern hemisphere or into the northern hemisphere, across the United States and down, which makes absolutely no sense unless you look at it on a flat Earth. On the right, it's a straight line, and that's how all planes fly. Now, you will be able to find a couple of flights that say they do fly from there, but you can't book them, you can't fly them, and they don't exist. Next. This is a chart of all of the internet cables, communication cables. None of them go across the Southern Ocean because there is no shortcut on a flat Earth. We could dive into that deeper later. Next, NASA and their imagery. NASA is laughing at us with everything they show us. They've never done anything. There are no astronauts have been to space. There are no satellites. There is no space station. And we've never been to the moon, and we've never been into outer space because it's not what we think. Next, this is what they show us as imagery of the space station. We have the space shuttle connected to that. Think of the torques and the twists and, just by movement of humans pushing off the walls, this thing never breaks down. If it ever does break down, they go on a spacewalk in their clunky suit and they can fix it with a screwdriver. I mean, our cars break down here on a hot summer day or cold winter. This thing is up there getting beaten by heat and meteors and stuff. And if you think about a submarine, every compartment has a sealed door and hatches, and they have to be maintained all the time. But they're never fixing these. There are no sealed doors between the compartments in the space station. They're wide open doors. There's nothing to protect one part from the other. And people just assume that there are, but there's not. Next frame. Here's a shot of the Earth from 1969 versus a more recent shot. Doesn't make any sense. It's a cartoon. Next. The top shot is a clip from the recent transit of the moon across the Earth. Of course, the sun is directly behind us. It's a perfect shot. That's supposedly the backside of the moon. It's a total cartoon. The one on the bottom right is the shot when we were on the moon, but that's what the Earth looks like. The Earth is so much bigger than the moon. It should like the picture on the bottom left. Next. If we're on a ball Earth, when you're flying at cruising altitude, the plane needs to dip down every minute, a substantial amount. Otherwise, it would fly off into space. The only way that wouldn't happen is if air is curved also. Otherwise, the plane is going to lift and just keep going, and it's going to fly into outer space. And that just doesn't happen. And the pilots do not go down because they're flying over a flat plane. Next. Satellites in space, are covered in tinfoil. There's 10,000 to 30,000 of them. They can't tell us how many. They always work. They don't break down. There's micrometeors out there, G-forces, plasma, gamma radiation, heat, cold, meteor storms, Van Allen radiation belt, electromagnetism, all sorts of stuff that should destroy these things, but they all survive. They're all fine. They don't melt. Next, the Hubble telescope doesn't exist. We've never seen a picture from it. It never turned towards Earth. It never took a picture of Earth or the moon. Go to the next picture. It's in the thermosphere that gets up to thousands of degrees. It should look like that, but it doesn't because it's not up there and it's fake. Next, the definition of irony is that all of the agencies that control the world, their logos have flat Earth maps. They're laughing at us, they're mocking us, and they're sticking it in our faces. Next. They love their numerology. The Earth has a 23.4 degree tilt. Subtract that from 90, 666. Next, here's Stanley Kubrick collaborating with NASA to fake the moon landings. We're in agreement with that. Next, we all remember the shuttle Challenger disaster. Well, that something blew up, but there was nobody on it, and all of these astronauts have identical twins still here on Earth with the exact same name as them now, all working for universities. You can look that up. There's videos that'll show you more about that. It's a complete and utter hoax. Next, go to the last slide. This is what I call puddle theory. This is just a theory that I have. It may or may not be true. There may only be one place, but this infinite flat plane could have other capacitors orbiting around a magnetic north, melting other puddles, if I could speak. And this is where, if you believe in extraterrestrials, well, I call them earthly terrestrials. They're coming from thousands of miles away instead of millions and billions of incomprehensible light years. And that's all I have to say. The Earth is flat and does not move, and there is no proof otherwise that the Earth is a spinning ball.